Exercise 2-3, Initializing the Tivoli Storage Manager Server. So the first thing you need to do before you initialize the server is create a series of directories that it requires for the installation or for the configuration. So we have you create a directory for the active log, the archive log, the active log mirror, and the archive log failover, and then another one for the database directory. We're separating these all out on different drive letters to reinforce the point that you want to be sure that you're separating these physically. And as you go through and create these, you want to be sure that you type them correctly. If you find when you get to the point of doing the server initialization that it doesn't find one, just go back and look. You might have typoed or put it in the wrong location. So create all of the directories that are shown in step 1. And the next task is to add a folder to the C program files Tivoli TSM directory. I showed you the make dir command for creating each of those paths for the log files, but you can also just go into the file system as shown here and just create a new folder that says server 1. This should be at the same level as that server directory in the installation path. Your next task is to open up a Windows command prompt. You'll need to create a user that's going to be used as the database instance owner. So use the net user command and then add a password. You won't see what you're typing, so the password should be typed very carefully. And then next you have a few groups that you need to add that user to. So you're going to add that to the administrators group, the DB2 admins group, and the DB2 users group. And you'll just get the message, the command completed successfully, every time you run one of those commands, and then you know that you've done your job. So go ahead and create all of those. Create that user, add it to the groups, and then you're going to log off as this user and switch to DB2 user 1. So you can either log off or you can switch users. You could continue on as the administrator, but it's best to do your configuration as the DB2 user 1 ID. This also allows you to run the server instance starting it in the foreground once we get to the labs. So log on as DB2 user 1 with password object 00. And there will be some windows that open up by default when you log in. There's the server manager window, which you'll get very familiar with later on when you do complex password support, but for now you can just close that window. And then also for convenience, I like to have you just click Start and right-click My Computer and Show on Desktop so your file system's easily accessible. The next task is to go back to the server directory and find the instance configuration wizard. It's dsmi cfgx.exe. And then double-click that to start the instance configuration wizard. So Install Anywhere starts up, and then a splash screen opens showing the language. You click OK, and then you'll need to already have all of those directories in place that you created earlier. And now you're going to start making use of those. So your instance is server 1 by default, and we'll go ahead and add the instance owner that you just created, DB2 user 1, with password object 00, and click Next. You'll need to provide the instance directory, so you already put server 1 out there, so that's perfect. Now select the second radio button and put in that directory on I that was listed in the instructions for the database directory. You could also have used the upper option and provided it with access to a list of files if that was what you wanted to do. Next, change the active log size to 2 gigabytes. We're only doing this because of the limited space in our lab environment. And you will probably start this out at more like 32 to 64 gigabytes in a regular installation. Now you can use that Choose button over to the right of each of the fields and choose the file that fits. And just browse to that file, select it, and click Open. And once you've populated all 4 of these fields with the directories that you created in those earlier steps, then you'll be able to continue. Okay. Now your next task is to give it a server name. We're going to call this TSM Server 1. So TSM underscore Server 1, and we'll click Next. Add an administrator name. Here it's going to be Admin1. And then we're going to make the password the same. So Admin1 for the password, and then Admin1 again to verify the administrator password. Then next is the server communications. We're going to accept the default client port and administrator port of 1500. Review the configuration summary and click Next. Now I've cut down the time that this takes, again, just for your viewing convenience. And this process will run through and install or initialize your server, and you can watch the progress in the window. You'll get a final return code of 0 at the end of the installation. And again, when it does get through, if you had any kind of errors, then it will show you some information so that you can follow up and correct those errors and correct the installation. So, your final screen will show a return code of 0, and then it says configuration is complete. Click Next, and you're done.